there was just so many, there's so many stories. I remember a long time ago, he picked me up from work. And back then, I used to travel a lot. So him and Colina had a key to my house. So they would like clean my house while I was gone, feed my fish. It was just crazy. But I remember I had came home from work one day and he had picked me up from work and he knew me so well. He was like, you have something in your eye. And I pulled down the visor, rose petals fell out, a letter fell out. I don't remember the letter, but I just remember it saying, this is a prelude, what's next to come. We get to my house, there's a beautiful note outside my door. Open the door, and there's all 9 fruits of the Spirit, like written out in different places of the house. And the last one, he ended with love. And then pointing to my room, there was a note on my door. Open my room, he had a huge world map covering my bed with 3 roses, red, yellow, and white. Red represented love, yellow friendship, and white purity and holiness. And Seattle, Washington was circled. And he said, we're going to the nations, you know, and a couple weeks later, like that same thing was prophesied from a random person. It was crazy. I remember another time he had worship music playing. My bubble bath was ran. And back then I used to work super long hours, super exhausted all the time. And he was like, get in the tub, soak as long as you need to. I'll be out here when you need me. And I probably was in there for like an hour, I don't know. But I remember coming out, when I came out of my room, he was right there at the door. And he led me into my living room. He had a whole pedicure station set up. And I remember him putting my feet in the water. And he began to just wash my feet. And he had opened up the Bible to John chapter 13, where Jesus washes the disciples' feet. And I remember he prayed and he was warring over my feet. And I remember he was saying, God, allow her feet to be anchored in you all the days of her life. Like, I remember that prayer, because when I tell you my feet have been anchored, you know what I'm saying? They have been anchored. And I remember he anointed my feet and prayed and gave me a pedicure and polished my toes with clear polish. And we went to the movies. And, you know, and it was just little stuff like that that began to really just grab me. You know, I remember looking in his phone one day at his calendar, and he had put like the following Wednesday fasting for Michelle. And and I was like, he ain't gonna fast. And that next week, I remember talking to him. He didn't know that I saw that. I never said anything. And I had talked to him that day, asking him what he had eaten and stuff. And he was saying nothing. He had been, you know, he wasn't hungry. He had been busy and stuff like that. But I knew he was fasting for me, you know. And just times where he would call me, he would hear my voice and just say, I'm on my way. There's times I used to sit in the dark, in the pitch dark, crying out, suicidal, depressed, broken. And this man would come and just lay on the ground and just war over me, and war and war and war and war and pray and war. And I think it was those things that began to really grab my attention, you know, and just the fact that I could be naked before him, you know, and I'm not talking about physically naked, but I'm talking about, you know, naked with my heart, naked with my emotions, naked with my pain, you know, naked with just being transparent and being vulnerable and being weak and feeling ugly and worthless and useless and all those different things. And I just remember him handling with me with such care. You know, I remember telling him years ago, like, I feel like I could just lay my life in your hands, because you're so gentle. Like you handle me and the girls with such care, and it just didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, I done rejected him, you know, and he's still here, you know. But it was still hard, because people were still like, nope, girl, nope, you know. But people over here was like, Michelle, you know. I remember we went to I'll never forget this day. We went to a conference, and there was this couple from France, and their ministry was so powerful, because while he's ministering in his language, speaking French, he's prophesying, but she's translating what he's saying at the same time. And I'm like, how does she hear at the same time? Like, the way they flowed in the spirit was amazing. And I remember I was sitting in the chair, and I remember he was like, he was like, come. And I went up, and I remember Kina was standing next to me, and I don't know who else, but I remember she was right there. And he's praying and he's prophesying, and she's interpreting what he's saying. And all I remember, he said to the spirit, like he began to speak to my spirit. Like it's like I wasn't even there. He was speaking to my spirit. He said, to the spirit that is trying to hinder you from getting married, come out. And I remember serious deliverance taking place that day. I mean, it was crazy. And I remember when I sat back and just really unpacked that, I was like, the spirit in me that's trying to hinder me. So there's something driving me that's trying to keep me from getting married, but especially marrying this man. You know, there was forces, and it made sense, because when I tell you, people were coming out of the woodwork trying to pull me away. I had offers, I had connections trying to be made. I remember I was on I-5 South head passing Alpo Swift, and I got a phone call. And I remember the person saying that they wanted me to accompany them at an event. Actually, with Marcus Trufant, every year he has a fundraiser, I think it is. And I remember they said, I want you to come. There's somebody I want you to meet. And I need you to make sure you're looking like wifey material. And I'm like, well, for one, I mean, if I go somewhere, I'm going to make sure I'm fixed up. But that's not how I roll. You know, like, just the whole idea of getting up to going there to meet somebody. And me and Dontae weren't together, but clearly we were in each other's lives. And I was like, and I remember getting off the phone, and in my mind, I'm like, well, maybe I can go, because I don't want to meet nobody, but I can connect with some of their wives and pass out business cards, you know? And I remember God allowed this whole vision to play out. And the Lord spoke to me that day, and he said that if you go, you're going to meet somebody, and it's going to be a dead end. Now, there will be opportunities there, and you will benefit from it, but it's a dead end. I want you to know that. It's not my will that you go. It's not even my will that you go to pass out business cards. And I said, okay. And I didn't go. And there was so many other just things that would always come at me. And I'm like, what is this? Why is this? Why am I dealing with this? It was so strong. It was so constant and consistent. It was like a war going on inside of me. And so I remember just consistently praying and just surrendering and drawing closer to God, with everything in me. And we began to get, closer. We began to get closer. The more I sought God, I remember just asking God, like, let me see him the way you see him. Like, if he is for me, like you say, why don't I feel the emotions that I feel like I should feel, like the butterflies and that attraction that I want to feel, right? And I remember he came over one day, and literally I opened the door, and I remember feeling like all jittery inside, and I'm like, what is this? Like, to the point where I couldn't even handle it. And we were headed to Famous Dave's, and I remember I was just kind of all over him, just whew. And he was like, what is wrong with you? And I remember going back and just repenting to God and just saying, I understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. You're keeping us. You're keeping me. You're keeping us. And so there's just so many different stories. But I think ultimately, as time progressed, I began to slowly, and I'm talking very slow, like turtle slow, see the light. And I began to realize that, God will give us what we need. It may not always be what we want in the beginning, but God will give us what we need. And what I also learned after actually we started dating is that, a lot of times when you come together, based on attraction and strong attraction, when that kind of fades away, what is the foundation? What is that? There has to be a foundation. It has to be built upon something. You know what I'm saying? And, the Lord, I remember 2 years in, the Lord kept saying 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. Just trust me, and the Lord began to shift some things around. I began to realize, and even into marriage, having to realize that there's things in me that he needs. There's things in him that I need, but ultimately we have to cultivate the gift. We have to cultivate, you know what I'm saying, the relationship. There's things that I may need to build him up in and help push him into where God is calling him and who God is calling him to be. And a lot of times we struggle with that because we live in this microwave society where we want things right now. We want that instant gratification. I want to wake up and just be where I'm supposed to be. I don't want to work for it. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have to strive. I don't want to have to labor. I don't want to have to go through pain. I just want it. And a lot of times that's how we see things. That's how we want our mate. We want things perfect. I wanted muscles galore, but yet my body's not on point. You know what I'm saying? I wanted him to be, certain things, but I wasn't even those things. Like, how am I requiring something of him and I'm not even operating in it? You know what I'm saying? And so I'm saying, don't miss out on your blessing. Don't miss out on your blessing because you're being led of your flesh or you're being extra picky. Now, yes, have a standard. Absolutely. But know that nobody is perfect. Nobody is perfect. And it's important that you have a foundation. And the foundation is Christ. I'm going to just be real. And it's important to go into it knowing that this person is not perfect, but I'm going to build them up. And they're going to build me up. You know what I'm saying? That is so important because I feel like some people are waiting on perfection. Some people are waiting on the perfect person, and the reality is nobody is perfect but Christ. You know what I'm saying? But if it is the will of God, if there is partnership, you know what I'm saying? If there is unity, if there is love, you know what I'm saying? If there is selflessness, you can come together and make it work. Because again, God doesn't look at the countenance. He looks at the heart. He looks at the heart. You know what I'm saying? He looks at the heart. So we have to do away with the flesh because the flesh is greedy and it wants everything and it's never satisfied. And so I said all that to say, be led of God and know yourself. Check your motives, check what's driving you, check what's even hindering you, and be okay with being content, loving yourself, waiting on the Lord. And in closing, I want to say, keeping it holy and being pure before God. There's no such thing as perfection. There's no such thing as, we're going to go through things in our relationship and our courting. We went through some things, as he stated in the last video. There was rubbing and touching, and there was some rolling on the floor. I'm just gonna keep it real, you know what I'm saying? And it was not easy, and the Lord said, I am not pleased. You may not be going all the way, but you might as well be, because I look at it the same anyways. So, there were boundaries that needed to be put in place. There were self-control that needed to be practiced. And the reality is if you don't put yourself, and this is not even just to intimacy, but just anything, if you don't put yourself in a situation to be tempted, then you'll be able to overcome easily. So what I'm saying is, if you're trying to stop smoking cigarettes, but you're hanging around people that smoke cigarettes, it's going to be harder for you to quit. Same thing with alcohol. If you're dating and you want to be, you want to keep yourself, it can be done. God always gives us a way out. We just have to use wisdom. And so, yeah, put boundaries up. Okay, you can't come over past a certain time. You know what I'm saying? No kissing or whatever that means for you. But putting those healthy boundaries in place so that you don't fall. It's better to prevent.
Practice prevention than restraint.
Practice prevention than restraint. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. It's better to practice prevention than restraint. So anyway, time is I'm sure super long by now. So I just want to say, be encouraged. Know that God has a plan for you. God has an awesome plan for your life. You know, his promises are yes and amen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but in order to walk into the promise, there's a requirement on our end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want, you know, to those that are still in waiting, just be encouraged and take this opportunity to enjoy your singleness, your singlehood. Enjoy this time. It's such a beautiful and blessed time in your singleness to be able to learn of yourself, to love yourself, to grow, to be found in your purpose, to be walking in those things. You know, you want to be found in your purpose. Let him find you busy in your purpose. You know, healed, whole, happy, living a joyful life. And it goes both ways. To those that are married, you know, those that are, you know, persevering through, those that are growing in marriage, continue to hold on, continue to do the work, continue to love, honor, and respect one another, you know, go out on dates, you know, just love on each other. And it's not going to be easy, because it's not, it's definitely not definitely not easy for us at all. You know, we're still on our healing journey, trying to make it through. So not trying, we are making it through, we're pushing through, we're determined to make it through. And so I just want to encourage you to keep going, be encouraged, and seek the Lord and trust the Lord. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
I hope this helps somebody, and stay tuned for next week. Not sure what God has, but just stay tuned. Thank you so much. Keep us lifted. We'll keep you lifted.
God bless.
Bye bye.